I am embarking on a quest to tell the origins of many of locations across the United Kingdom, starting on my own doorstep in East Anglia and beyond. What fascinating stories will I unearth? Join me in my search for the knowledge of the past. We shall be starting in one of the oldest settlements in the United Kingdom, a town steeped in history. A town which has seen bloodshed, persecution, and royal connections, the town of Ipswich. The town of Ipswich is located northeast of London, in the county of Suffolk, part of East Anglia. The waterside town falls under the County Council of Suffolk. The town we see today is relatively large, and various locations, which were once separate villages, have become a part of the town itself in one way or the other, converting them from villages to districts. Districts such as the Chantry Estate and Witton Estate, both of which used to be neighbouring villages, however, are now incorporated into the town as a district. All areas have their unique histories and pasts. To understand the past of Ipswich, we need to turn the clock back to where it all started. The later prehistoric period includes the Neolithic, Bronze Age and Iron Age periods, which cover from around 4500 BC to the Roman conquest in AD 43. In this part of England, the settlement sites of this period contain timber buildings, which leave only ephemeral archaeological traces in the form of post holes and gullies. As a result, these traces tend not to be recognized unless a site is being intentionally excavated by archaeologists. Pits and ditches associated with these settlements are more durable, but again are unlikely to be identified outside of archaeological excavations. Stone and metal artifacts, such as flint axes or bronze blade fragments, are both resilient and more recognizable, but are usually only recorded as stray finds, with no information about their archaeological contexts. So was Ipswich occupied in this time frame? Some small finds from this broad later prehistoric period have a fairly even distribution over the borough, which suggests that settlement may have been present in most areas, although objects may also have been picked up from other areas and subsequently lost. There is a noticeable concentration of Neolithic stone and flint axes in Ipswich, which suggests that some may have been imported from the surrounding rural areas. The most notable stray finds in Ipswich of the Iron Age gold torques that were found in the Belstead Hills area in 1968, with an additional one in 1970. They are an important indicator that there must have been significant and very wealthy settlements in the near vicinity. The sites with recorded archaeological features, houses, hearths, pits and ditches, are heavily biased towards those areas where housing and industry expanded in the 20th century. That is in the White House and Witton areas on the north and northwest sides of Ipswich, in the Chantry area of the southwest, and in the Landseer, Gainsborough and Priory Heath districts of the southeast. These prehistoric deposits have been better preserved because they were only disturbed when excavated before any development since the 1970s. These areas did not have the long-term and extensive below-ground disturbances that the areas of central Ipswich experienced. At Castle Hill, named as there was once believed to house a castle, holds the earliest known definitive records of habitation in the area. Under what is now housing in Tranmere Grove and Chesterfield Drive lies the remains of a Roman villa. It was excavated in 1931 and again in 1949 before residential building started. Coins were found along with a mosaic floor which is on display in Ipswich Museum. It featured on Channel 4's archaeological television programme Time Team in 2004. The dig helped provide more evidence to supplement that gathered in the 1949 dig by archaeologist Basil Brown. This area has for centuries been called Castle Hill, but there never was a castle, or at the very least, no evidence to a castle has been found. Castle Hill Farm stood just yards away prior to the housing scheme. Basil John Waite Brown was an English archaeologist and astronomer. Self-taught, he discovered and excavated a 6th century Anglo-Saxon ship burial at Sutton Hoo in 1939, which has come to be called one of the most important archaeological discoveries of all time. Although Brown was described as an amateur archaeologist, his career as a paid excavation employee for a provincial museum spanned more than 30 years. Part of a decorated, tessellated pavement of a Roman villa was found at Castle Hill during the construction of the farmhouse in 1854. It was preserved in Ipswich Museum. Another section of floor of the villa, consisting of red and white tesserae, was found in 1897 during planting of an orchard. These two finds prompted Marr and Maynard to excavate the site in 1932. Sectioning of the site revealed to Roman occupation levels not long separated in time. Samian ware, 1st century cordon vase, bronze rings and bracelets, 2nd and 3rd century glass beads, keys, knives, spur, spatula, bone hairpins, bodkins, an oculus stamp, and coins dating from 119 AD to 378 AD were found during the excavation, dating the villa 1st 4th century AD. Roman rule in Britannia, which was the old Roman name for Britain, ended in AD 410. The reason for Roman soldiers leaving the country was because of constant attacks from barbarian tribes, including the Visigoths and the Vandals. The end of their rules is marked by a letter from Emperor Honorius, who told Britain they now had to look after their own defences. So, it was left, and a new threat emerged in the wake of the Roman retreat. The Saxons, depicted by many as brutish hairy barbarians who would slaughter you as soon as look at you. The Saxons were a group of Germanic peoples, whose name was given in the early Middle Ages to a large country, Old Saxony, Latin, Saxonia, near the North Sea coast of northern Germania, in what is now Germany. In the late Roman Empire, the name was used to refer to Germanic coastal raiders, and in a similar sense to the later Viking pirate or raider. Their origins are believed to be in or near the German North Sea coast, where they appear later, in Carolingian times, in Merovingian times. But in fairness, it is important to point out that there isn't really any evidence or reason to trust this suggestion other than its romance. The best evidence of the settlement came from the Greyfriars Road, Novotel site, where to SFBS, and many rubbish pits were associated with handmade pottery and imported Frankish wares. The distribution of handmade pottery suggests that occupation covered some 15 hectares, north of the river, up to the line of Silent Street, Tackett Street and Lower Orwell Street. North of this occupation, contemporary inhumation burials have been excavated at a number of sites: Foundation Street 2 graves, Bond Street 3 graves, and south of the Butter Market, 71 graves. An extensive radiocarbon dating program carried out on the Butter Market graves provided a date range of c. 610, 635 to c. 686, 690 AD. The graves were unusual compared with other contemporary cemeteries in England. Men, women and children commonly laid in coffins or containers, and many of the graves were lined with wooden structures or linings. Into cases, the containers appeared to be small boats. Some of the burials were surrounded by penannular ditches, probably indicating that they were covered by mounds or small barrows, and at least 6 individuals were buried with weapons or with jewelry and girdle assemblages. 3 of the male burials had belt suites most closely paralleled in burials in northern France and Belgium. The cemetery in Stoke, found on the Stoke Quay site, comprised 20 inhumation burials, including 7 under barrows, dating from the late 6th to early 8th century. Remnants of Anglo-Saxon past of Ipswich can be found in various places across the town, mainly within place names, such as Hanford Road, part of the original Roman road which lead from Colchester in Essex to Caister in Norfolk. It was named after the Anglo-Saxon Hagin Fordabridge, which means Haginus Ford. As for when the name change happened from Gippeswyk to Ipswich, This is still disputed, and likely we will never know the truth. Ipswich was ideally situated for trading, mostly with Germany, where millstones and whetstones were shipped in. Wool was in abundance, so Ipswich began trading wool. The town began to flourish and grow, and craftsmen began to settle in Ipswich. Wool weavers and Frisian potters from the Netherlands who had settled there had plenty of work. Being situated in a prominent position for trading had its downfalls. In 793, a new threat to the Saxons arrived on the shores of Britain. The Vikings, meaning raiders, it was, thus, a term originally meant to describe the people who went raiding. In modern parlance, however, the term has become a catch-all to describe everybody from Scandinavia during the Middle Ages who spoke a North Germanic language. Alternatively, it can be used to describe just those who left Scandinavia to raid, conquer, and settle. They arrived on the shores of Britain and went to Lindisfarne Priory in Northumbria, which they raided. The term Dane generally refers to the Vikings from Denmark, while Norse typically refers to Vikings from Norway. During the Middle Ages in England, however, there would have been little distinction, and the term Dane was used to refer to all Scandinavians or Vikings in England, or those who had their eyes on raiding, conquering, or settling in England. As far as history is concerned, it was mainly the Danes from Denmark who focused on England, while the Norse from Norway raided and settled in northwestern Scotland and Ireland. On the other side, English and Anglo-Saxon are used interchangeably to describe the people of Anglo-Saxon England. Would appear one that would change the course of Britain for years to come. In 869, the Danes invaded and occupied Ipswich. The earth ramparts, which circled the town centre, were probably raised by the Vikings around 900 in a vain attempt to prevent its recapture by the English in 117. The town operated a mint under royal license from King Edgar in the 970s, which continued through the Norman conquest until the time of King John. In about 1215, the abbreviation Gypes appears on the coins. By now Ipswich had a population of about 2,000 people.